Life speaks. It speaks through struggles and success, through music and messages, the preconceived and the unexpected. Whether you are in the depths of the valley or in the midst of your mountaintop experience, everyone needs to be encouraged from time to time. Here we will share stories of strength, testimonies of triumph, verses of victory, observations, and information meant to touch the heart and uplift the soul, to keep you on your path of purpose and navigate this thing called life with power and authority. This is Andrea Hines, and I'm your host for When Life Speaks, here on ALH Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Streaming Inspirational Broadcast Network. I am glad you accepted the invitation to join us tonight. There's something in this broadcast just for you, and if it is going to be a blessing to your life, it will be to someone else as well. So share, tag, start a watch party, and invite someone you know to join us. Then turn down the volume of life and get ready to receive, so that when life speaks, you'll speak life. Good evening, everybody. Hey there, Lynn. Good evening to you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great, thank you.
And there's Miss Ida Betts. Good evening to you, Miss Ida. How you doing today? We hope you're doing well. I tell you what, I am welcoming everybody to When Life Speaks tonight because we have a topic that is a good topic.
Yes.
And when I put out the little welcome message earlier in the day, I was thinking this was so much right in line with what needed to happen to round out our earlier discussions, because we've been talking about pain. We've been talking about how to get past the pain of the past,
right?
Not allow it to be toxic baggage. And we had some help from clinical psychologist Gene Hoskins on last week, and he was talking to us about healing. And we had something happen with us over the weekend that really brought to the forefront how important communication is. And with all of the things that we had been discussing recently, communication is still at the top of the list somewhere in things that we need to do in order to have healthy relationships. We got to have healthy communication. And we had some new people join the village, and I was happy to see those names come up. And I'm just going to read off who responded this time, because we had some great responses, and sometimes we kind of go in order with what everybody said, but there were some common threads. And so I want to just talk about the common threads and then kind of go through the things that were a little bit different, that brought a new perspective to where we are going tonight. I do want to give my little, little housekeeping rules in the beginning. Lynn always laughs at me when I do this. But look, we really do appreciate your input, and we appreciate you sending in some topics for us to deal with. Bernice Clark has sent us a topic that we're going to put in a future program. But we do appreciate that. And if you want to become a part of the village so that you can weigh in on the topics that we have, what do they have to do then?
They have to email you.
And they have to email me at Speak Life
with Andrea at Gmail.
We're going to get the silliness out of the way early. Speak Life with Andrea at gmail.com. Just be sure to send me an email and let me know what your thoughts are, and we can go from there. Lynn, do you want to have any kind of pre-comment before we get started, or you want us to just dive right in?
I think we should dive right in. I think with I was going to call them the town hall. I think what the village has come back with, and you've got a lot of responses from the village. I think we should just go on and dive right into what you said.
Okay. I want to tell you, first of all, who participated, and I'm going to thank you all in advance. Pastor Gloria Kennedy, who's out in California, Victoria Henderson Poole, Bernice Clark, Angela Oliphant, Linda Cooks, new person, Zachary Latty, who is new to the village. Thank him for his comments tonight. Elizabeth Oliphant, who's new to the village, thank her for her comments tonight. And Jasmine Hines. Jasmine is new to the village, and I thank her for commenting tonight. She was a big part of how this all came about. Francina Booker, who's very faithful with us, Marie Kinsella, Charles Durant, and Zerlina Abobi. They were all a part of our village who commented on what we are talking about tonight. And tonight's topic is, what do you need to do in order to develop and maintain healthy communication in relationships, especially in the family? And I wanted to position it that way because so many families are broken. So many relationships have just hit a place of decline, and it just seems like people cannot get back on track. And it's really, really important. I mean, the family is just the stabilizer in so many ways. You can't let the enemy have our families and tear our families apart. So what we need to do is just find a way. We got to find a way to be able to communicate with one another that's healthy. That's healthy. And I want to start with a comment that Bernice made. And she said, I think healthy communication starts in the heart and mind before a word is spoken. That kind of got me. I think healthy communication starts in the heart and mind before a word is spoken from our lips. And we can't be self-righteous or judgmental. Yes, and that self-righteous and judgmental piece was something that came through. Hey there, Victoria. Good evening to you. Carmen, good evening to you. I see you popped in as well. There are some things that were a common thread. That through everybody's input, it stood out. One of these things stood out. Let's see if I can remember them. Trust. Trust was a big one. Being open, being open-minded, having respect, showing respect. Don't be hurtful. No finger pointing. That goes into the, hey, Zerlina. Hello there, Jasmine. Good evening. Completely honest. Honesty was a big thing. And big thing. Through the thread.
So key.
Yep. The non-judgmental piece, not being biased. Listening came through on many of the comments that we got in different ways. In different things that were said about listening. So I'm going to try to pull the things that were different from the comments that were made. And Lynn, do you have a comment before we get started?
I wanted to say one thing is that sometimes we think that a lot of times we think body language sometimes is communication, and a lot of times communication is merely, you got to have a conversation in order to be able to communicate. And we have to get to a place where we stop thinking that the subliminal messages that we send to people is a way of communicating,
Mm-hmm.
because it isn't. Again, it comes to the perception, and it's going to be perceived incorrectly, which then causes another issue on top of itself. But communication is a conversation, and I think it goes back. The conversation that needs to be had is what Bernice said. We have to have that conversation with ourselves in our heart
Yes.
in order to be able to get how you're feeling across
Mm-hmm.
without attacking. It's got to start there. So
Mm-hmm. I believe that as well. And when I was talking about and wanting to specifically address the family, is because I was reading a quote somewhere that says, "Strong families are the foundation of a strong and prosperous society."
mhm.
And one thing that we have gotten away from, and it's something that came up in somebody's comments, we we have so much going on. Everybody has their own individual thing that they're doing. And we have to, in order to be able to communicate in a healthy way, we have to be able to come together.
Mhm.
And I don't know who it was, but somebody said, come together in a group chat if you
Yes.
have to, if
Mhm.
everybody is spread out. But we have to make time for
Mhm.
the family.
Yeah.
And that's something that has gone away. It used to be that you always ate dinner together, or you
On
always
Sunday.
did
One meal at least.
at least, yeah, at
One
least.
meal.
I
Mhm.
know Sundays we always took a ride out to the country and had dinner at grandma's house.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people who have family dinner, and we're getting back to
Yeah.
having our family dinner
Mhm.
and really exploring how we communicate with
Yeah.
each other. And that was very important. And I want you to, when we get down here a little bit further, then I want you to talk about the game and
Okay.
what happened on Sunday.
Okay.
Pastor Gloria started out by telling us, in addition to some of these other things that she picked up, that were picked up in her comments, she said, first of all, we start with forgiveness. And this is what was key: of all real and or imagined
Yes.
offenses.
Mhm.
When we talk about offense, you know, I may say something to you in a way that offends you, and I am totally clueless
Mhm.
that I've done that. And if
Mhm.
that's not addressed, and if you don't bring it to my attention in a way that is not hurtful, in a way that's
Yes.
not disrespectful, and all those other things that we think are part of healthy communication, then the behavior continues.
Yes.
Because you don't see what's wrong. You don't
Mhm.
know that anything is wrong. So forgiveness was again a common thread
Mhm.
through the comments that were made. And I like when she said real or imagined.
Yes.
Real.
That was key to me, and that stood out because when I read that, and when I got to the part where she said imagined, and I thought, wow, because sometimes the offense is an imagined offense. It sometimes I think we make things bigger than they really are.
Mm-hmm.
Not to minimize what anybody is offended from, but sometimes, and I say imagined offenses because sometimes when we get in our own head, we take it out of context.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then,
That's how we perceive
yes, how you
based
perceive
on
it.
how we're feeling. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and again, but if we don't have the conversation,
You never know.
you'll never know. Hmm.
You never know. Um, and she was talking about being a good listener too,
Yeah,
because she said many times the person is not looking for an answer, they just want to be heard. And
exactly.
how often are we able to do that
Hmm.
without interrupting,
Hmm.
especially if we are not in agreement? And I think
Hmm.
somebody else brings that out a little farther down the line. And
Interrupting or inserting. You know
either
what I mean by that? When I say inserting, I'm hearing you, but then you say something, but then I have to mention what I did.
Mm-hmm.
how I got over it. You know, so it's no longer about you anymore because I've interjected myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And Francina said victim
Victim
mentality.
mentality. Mm-hmm.
Victim mentality. That's good, Francina. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you for that. And I think Bernice mentioned it. I know Francina has it here, and some Pastor Gloria mentioned it as well. Spend some time praying.
Yeah.
Gotta pray. Pray about how you can help each other and write down what the Holy Spirit tells you. Ask
Mm-hmm.
God how you can be an asset in whatever the situation happens to be. Remember that the person must trust you
Yes.
to even come to you and trust your value and your input
Yes.
their life. And I
Mm-hmm.
like the way she had trust
Mm-hmm.
there. Zachary really had a lot of these things in his
Yeah.
comments, but one thing that stood out for me, and that was knowing when and how to
How to
say
say.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing when and how to say
Mm-hmm.
sorry. And there's so many times that we're so busy fighting against what we're hearing
Yeah.
because we may not be in agreement with it, or we're busy defending
Yes.
what is being said, that
Mm-hmm.
we lose the opportunity to
To
simply say,
apologize.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. And there's forgiveness. That forgiveness is here, but it's something about hearing somebody say, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry and mean it.
Exactly.
And mean it.
Say it
Mm-hmm.
and mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's see. Angie Oliphant was also on the open and honest side
Yep.
listening, but um, her comment that was different was uh, listen to hear and
And not to respond.
understand.
Mm-hmm.
Don't listen to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you were just talking
Mm-hmm.
about interjecting,
Mm-hmm.
putting something in there that doesn't need to be in
Right.
there because it's not about you. And I don't know what exercise it is that says when particularly in conflict, you have to. That's good. Jasmine says
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness starts the
Starts the
conversation.
mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to listen and let me speak,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
then I have to be willing to listen and let you speak.
Right.
Because when we don't do that, we remove the opportunity for people to be open. We remove the feeling of a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're busy talking over me or putting something in the conversation that turns it to you,
Yes.
then I feel like what I'm saying is not of value.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not of value, then pretty soon I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
shut down.
Right. Especially if you make me feel like I've been minimized.
Yes.
Especially if you take what bothers me and then you make it seem like just because it bothers me and you don't get it, that it doesn't mean anything.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of that respect issue and part of
Yes.
value, that value issue. Jasmine had some things for us regarding offense and having a safe place and many of those things. And she said a couple of things that were different that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
point out. Uh, she said, acknowledge each other's pain if they express it
Yes.
without comment.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that gets over into not tripping into that
Right.
judgmental zone. Communicate on big and small things.
Yes.
If you talk more often, then when you do come together,
Mm-hmm.
it's not coming together to solve and resolve.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sometimes you just need to be able to talk,
Mm-hmm.
and she pointed that out. Another thing that she pointed out was hear to gain. She was in the listening and hearing piece,
Yeah.
listening and hearing, to gain knowledge of how each other feels without attacking.
Right. That is so key.
And it's so difficult for some of us to do. With if I hear, if you say something to me, and I don't agree with it, it is difficult for me to allow you to have that feeling
Mm-hmm.
without saying, "Oh, that's not what I meant," or
Mm-hmm.
"That's just who I am,"
Right.
or one of those
Mm-hmm.
components. Go ahead, then and
I
talk. Oh, go ahead. I'm
There
sorry.
was something that Jasmine also said here where she says value both sides.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very, very key. And I'm not going to say that it's very, very key because her last name just happens to be just like ours. But communication, and I think because, and I appreciate what she's written, I appreciate what she said, because communication for us hasn't always been this way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's something we both had to grow to, you know, where you have to get to the place that it's not so much that we didn't trust one another, but when you're a parent, sometimes you don't always listen to hear or to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you listen to correct.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that what she said, but the whole topic of communication, and I love the fact that you said healthy communication.
Yes.
Because these are healthy ways to communicate, because oftentimes we communicate and it's not healthy, because sometimes if we haven't done like Bernice said in the beginning, and we haven't prayed and searched our heart, if we come from a place of anger, then it's not communicated, because I'm coming at you the way I feel or perceived you came at me.
Yeah, and that just the wording of that, coming
at you,
coming at you, as opposed to having setting up
right.
the
Set the
scenario
atmosphere.
that says, I'm just going to talk. You
Right.
know, just want
There's
to.
times that I'm not sure who said that. I think it was Charles. I think it was Charles who said that you have to know the time and the place to say I'm sorry. And it's also the same thing when you have to have the healthy communication. Sometimes you have to wait for the right opportunity so that the person can hear you.
Right. Right.
So that you can be heard. And so that what you have to say can be received. So if you're in the heat of a discussion, and I don't want to say argument, I want to say in the heat of a discussion,
right,
that may not be the time. You may have to step back. You may have to step back so that your words are effective, not hurtful, but effective.
Effective. Right. Right. I think that's true. Linda was on the vein of honesty, talked about not entertaining offensive, actively listening, be compassionate and selfless. Be willing to listen and know when you should speak or not speak.
Yeah.
Because everything is not, I won't say deserving of a response, but everything does not need
right.
a response. Sometimes it's just that you need to just listen.
Because I have a friend that says all the time, everything is not lawful and expedient to say.
Yes, yes.
So you just don't have to make a comment on everything. You don't.
So very true. Just because it's said doesn't mean that you need to respond.
Right.
And I think that's so important. And somebody else had mentioned, you know, in praying with and for one another, which is what Linda had brought out, and to be compassionate and selfless. We spend so much time making our point. Right. And somebody put it in here. You know, you gotta make sure why you are communicating and how you are communicating. Who was it? Elizabeth said, set boundaries.
Yeah.
Set boundaries in your communication sometimes. Listen before responding. The understanding. She was on that understanding part. But this is something that is key. Ready?
Yep.
Don't take everything personally.
Could we get that capitalized and on
that is a big one. A big one. Don't take everything
personal.
I tell you that, boy, if we could go through that, that was something that you know, that's where that offense.
Yes.
That's the fire for offense. Francina, you were saying you were told that often. Put in there, which comment were you referring to? If you could just put that in the comment section, that would be great. Um, let's see.
Marie
Marie.
Marie Kinsella. I thought that's where you were going
Oh, no,
to
no.
next. Okay.
Let's see. No, I was going to finish up. I wanted to finish up with Zerlina, and then we'll move on to Marie, if that's okay.
Okay.
Zerlina said, I believe, again, honesty, trust, open dialogue. And she also brought up that family counseling may be necessary sometimes. And that's something that Jean, our clinical psychologist, was talking about and talking with us about. And it came up in all those previous shows. Sometimes you need help.
Yeah.
Sometimes we really just don't know what to say, and we just don't know how to say it. And the boundaries that Elizabeth talked about. I know a family that said what they used to do was have an invitation to the table. When an issue came up, and I've used it in leadership, I've used it in different assignments that I've had, to bring people to the table. And the table is a non-judgmental, safe space where you can, if you have a problem with a decision that I've made, or you just don't understand why I made the decision, you come to the table and you talk about it. Right. And you ask whatever questions you have to ask. You say, I don't understand your response to that. You say, I'm not sure why we went in that direction. And the person has the right to respond. Now, you got to be respectful. You cannot be offended, but you will get an honest and open answer, and it will give you an opportunity to say whatever you want to say. But the key was it stayed at the table.
Yes.
You didn't bring it up 10 days later. You didn't bring it up a month later. You didn't come
Once
out.
It was done, it was done.
Exactly. Once it was done, it was done. Everybody was respected for the things that they had to say.
Francina put a, go ahead, I'm sorry.
We both saw it at the same time. Francine said every comment doesn't require a response. And Jazz said it's okay to seek help too. Amen. Amen. Hey there, Bernice. Glad to have you on the line. We were talking earlier about your comment having to do with starts in the heart and the mind. We thank you for that. We thank you for that comment tonight. Marie, you want to talk about what Marie had to say, Lynn?
I think that her first one, family meeting, to air out all concerns. Talk to a professional, which is something we've discussed. Pray no matter what before you speak.
Yes.
And my last one, journal your thoughts.
Journal your thoughts.
Right. And I think I'm going to go backwards with hers, because I think, of course, if you pray before, no matter what, before you speak, it's difficult it should be difficult to speak from a bitter tongue.
Yes.
It should be very difficult to speak from a bitter tongue. And I know I can speak for myself. I know sometimes I have oftentimes gone with the mindset that I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. And then if they say this, I don't know, has anybody else rehearsed the whole conversation in
that
your
you
mind?
Didn't get to have?
Everything that you were going to say, and they're going to say, because you've already rehearsed in your mind that when they say this, I'm going to say that. And then when you get there, none of that transpired, because you prayed first, and the only thing that you could get out was, I'm so sorry. So I think the prayer is key. And then I love the fact that she said, journal your thoughts.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes if you journal your thoughts and really write it out and almost hear yourself saying it or replaying the situation, some things that you feel that might need to have an air conversation really doesn't need to be aired.
No.
Isn't sometimes it's something that you have to work with on yourself and not with the other person. The family meeting, to air out all concerns. I think that is so key and so important. But again, sometimes it may take a professional to help bring the issues to the table, because some family issues are heavy.
Yes.
And they take more than just laying it on the table and we gonna leave it there. It takes a little bit more than that.
Mm-hmm.
But is this where you wanted me to talk about
Yeah,
Sunday?
you can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about that.
We have decided, or I shouldn't say we, my daughter came up with the idea that every fourth Sunday that we would get together as a family and play games, chit chat, talk, catch up. You know, our lives are always going in multiple and different directions. But again, it's the time to come to the table. We cook, we eat, we fellowship. And this particular, I think we played a game the last month. I think this month we had, it was a game, but it was kind of like a truth or dare kind of questions. There were several questions that were on a card. You could either answer the question or pass on the question. But I don't think we had a question that we passed on. I think we all answered our questions. Um, well, one of the questions for me that was given to me was, I think it was, what is one thing that irritates you the most? I think it was something like that. And I was gonna pass on it because I really wasn't sure whether or not I really wanted to talk about it. But what I realized, that it was either now or never kind of thing. And it was one of those things that, if you don't say it, again, you can't hold anybody's feet to the fire if they don't ever really know.
Yes.
So it's funny in a way. What the issue is funny because my mom's birthday is coming up, and so I've been trying to plan this birthday party for her for like 3 years. And every year something happens, but some way, somehow, this opportunity, I mean, it just literally fell in my lap. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I sent her an email and I still, like her, I'm a kind of a pack rat. I still had the document that she had sent me with the invitation list. So I sent her the invitation list and I told her to go through it, take off or add whomever. Well, she replied back, but when she replied back, she replied with a question. And then it was starting to irritate me because I was just like, I just need one thing, Jesus. But when I expressed to her how that made me feel, my mother's response to me was, in her mind, it was more of, what can I do to help kind of thing. And I think that if so she put her own spin on it, when for me, all I really needed was kind of like the yes or no. So then she came with another set of questions and I was just like, oh my gosh, please. But after we talked about it and she explained why she was asking, and I heard what she was saying, and I literally told her, I said, I heard you, and I need you to know that I did hear what you said, and I know how I feel has nothing to do with what you just said. However, I have to tell you how that makes me feel.
Mm-hmm.
Because how it made me feel is as if my mother was still parenting me and telling me what to do. That's how it came across, even though that's not what she said she was doing. But if I never told her how that made me feel, and her reaction, I remember my mother's reaction was like, wow. It's kind of like you had to stop and was like, wow, you would have never thought I was taking it that way. But if I never said it, she would never really understand why I would get so aggravated at the questions.
Mhm.
So
Now,
go ahead.
can I go? I wanted to point out a couple of things. Um, Bernice said we ask the questions, but can we handle
Handle the truthful response.
response? And I think that is very key. I think it's key because we have to be able to acknowledge whether I liked the response or not. I had to acknowledge that was her process.
Mm-hmm.
That was her thought process. That was
Mm-hmm.
her feeling. Now, I could have, in not acknowledging the truth of the response, I could have said, well, you know what? That's not what I mean. You ought to know me by now.
Right.
So, blah, 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 and gone on through that. And Jazz, you're right. You can't
You can't fix what you don't know. Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to the second part of this, because we're talking about this in terms of family communication, and we're looking at it from a standpoint. I'm sorry, guys. We're looking at it from a standpoint that we're coming together to solve issues.
Mm.
And I think that it is important to come together.
Yeah.
I think that somebody mentioned, and it may have been Jazz, great things and small things.
Yes.
It's good to just come together. It's
Mm-hmm.
good to just plan the family time.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to just be in each other's presence and just have dialogue that may be crazy, may be funny, may be serious. But the more often you come together and the more you do communicate at that time, those times where there's no judgment and everybody feels safe and all of that, then when the issues surface, the communication is not so difficult.
Right.
It's not so hard to be able to listen well.
And I think that for us, for the three of us, when we sat down to play the game, I don't think any of us expected the game to go the way it did. It was like it opened up a door for dialogue.
I like that. It opened a door for
dialogue, you know, without
Mhm.
being confrontational. I mean, and I think, because I think Jazz and I said after you left, it was like, wow, that was fun. That was like, because we got to talk. We got to talk. We got to share. We got to be open, open. You got to be vulnerable. And it was just like, and nobody was and some of these questions were kind of tricky. Some of the questions were kind of tricky, but nobody was at the place of, oh, I know you put this question in here for me. It wasn't like that. You know what I mean?
And I think when Elizabeth said about setting boundaries, we didn't come together for an issue. We came together to play a game.
Right.
So we entered into it from a place of being non-judgmental, from a place of being safe, from a place of being comfortable. We had a good dinner, and food always makes me feel better. I don't know about you, but we were relaxed. Nobody was edgy. Nobody was on edge. So the boundaries had already been set for us to be comfortable and for us to be open.
Yes.
And be at a place of truth and trust.
Right.
And I think that's key. Let me move on. Victoria said, understand that family relationships are just as important as friendships and must be handled with the same level of care. Truly listen and not talk. Truly listen and not talk. And again, she brought out, make time to spend quality time with family. Quality time with family. Doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Getting to know each other can happen easily over games or on a game night. To realize no one is perfect, forgive often, and love, 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 love. Love does
Let's
cover a
cover a
multitude
multitude.
of sins.
Mhm.
Hallelujah.
I love that. I love that. Forgive often.
Forgive often.
Forgive often.
Forgive often. And always, always, Bernice, you're talking about the heart and the mind. Always into communication with love. With
Yes.
love. If love is a part of the equation, then forgiveness is not
It's so.
difficult. If love is part of the equation, then respect is an automatic. If love is part of the equation, you can be open, you can be honest, trust is there. You will listen with new
Yes.
ears, you will not be judgmental. All of those things that
Yes.
can break the family down, break the family apart, and
Yes.
cause you to have negative communications
Mhm.
can be erased or at least diminished
Vintage. Mhm.
when you start with love, because
Yes.
when you start with love, the rest of it will line up and
Yes.
fall into place. I think this was good. Village, I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Awesome
There was some
topic.
great things, great things. Francina also said, be the solution and not the problem.
Problem. Yes.
Maintain a positive attitude and seek out the good. Look for the good.
Good. Yes.
Don't
Seek
say
out the good.
don't be don't be finger pointing. They tell
Gosh.
me, don't do this. Don't have me
Yes.
say this and you say, but
Hmm.
you did so and so to me.
But and I think
No
sometimes
preconceived notions. No
I'm gonna go
preconceived.
back to that old school thing. When you're pointing one at one person, you got three pointing back at yourself. So
Yes.
before you can point that finger, you should look at yourself and
Yes.
see what issue you have. What did you bring to this?
Yep.
You know,
Not interrupting when you're not in agreement, when you're not in agreement. Compromise. We're going to end on this one. Compromise. Be willing not to have to be right all the time.
say that again.
Be willing not to be right all the time.
I
Maintain.
feel like that's the point where we go up and lay that offering on the altar.
You put the finger.
That's when you go
Oh,
lay
is
that
that a
offering on the
run? Is
altar.
that a run?
That statement needed an offering behind it,
I tell
because
you what.
that
Tell
is
you what.
so key. That is just so
Yes.
key. This was an awesome topic.
I think it was a good
It's an
topic, and
awesome
I think
topic.
it was a good topic to close these sessions, these
Yes.
several programs,
Mhm.
because it is none of the rest of it works if we
Right.
can communicate in a healthy
Right.
way, as we need each other,
Yes.
and we need to let each other know how much we care and
Mhm.
how important we are to one another,
Mhm.
and that we are willing at all costs, we're going to keep the family together. We're going
Yes.
to keep communicating. We're going to keep working through. And I just once again thank all of the villagers, all the townspeople
The town criers.
who came together and gave us some great input
Yes.
tonight. So thank you again. Thank you for being with us here at When Life Speaks. We will be
Yes.
back again next week. Not sure what the topic is going to be. We're going to pray about it and talk to God and see where He wants us to go. I kind of think I know, but you come back next week. Come back 7 p.m.
I'm
right.
trying to see whether or not she was going to drop
Yeah,
that
you
hint.
think
I
I'm
was
going
like,
to whisper? No, not going to do it. Victoria says we are life speakers. Yes, we
yes.
are. Yes, we are, Victoria. And next week, when you come back, you're going to turn down the volume of life, because when life speaks, you speak
life.
life. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night. See you
Good
next
night.
week.
Bye.